Come on down to the drive-in tonight. Evil Dead Chick is screening a slasher double feature. Slasher Fest is here. Bring your popcorn with extra butter, please. Put some soda on ice. Let's go! The blood will flow, the gore will splatter. Forget your stress, nothing else will matter except the movies and the memories. Come on down to the drive-in tonight. Evil Dead Chick is screening a slasher double feature. Slasher Fest is here. Bring your popcorn with extra butter, please. Put some soda on ice. Let's go! The blood will flow, the gore will splatter. Forget your stress, nothing else will matter except the movies and the memories.
Howdy, gang. Permit me a second to. I'm a little flustered because, as usual, around here, when I got ready to get set up for this, the dogs need to go out and different things were happening. So just give me just 1 second here. I know this only bothers me not having my right font on there. But again, I know it's near the holidays. It is the holiday season. People are probably doing Christmas shopping, visiting with family still, and all kinds of good stuff. Plus, sometimes winter time is a slow time for people, watching stuff on YouTube. Or maybe it's just my stuff on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know. But it seems like it's been a slow time for a while now, and I don't know. I'd love to hear from you guys about what y'all would like to see me do streams on. Because I'm always open to new ideas and stuff. And if the stuff that I'm doing now is not interesting people, um, besides starting drama on the internet, I'll do just about anything, or talk about anything. Because there's enough drama on the internet anyway. Um, and I just lost two people when I said that. So maybe they were looking for drama. I don't know. But Gory Tiger, the Marvel, I'm glad to see you guys in here. I thought maybe I'd see the poet in here, but maybe the poet is busy. Darcy, you cannot come and sit in the chair with me now, please. But I'm glad to see you two guys in here. And I say guys as a whole because, could be ladies in here, could be men in here. But when I say guys, I'm saying that as an overall term. So I hope nobody takes offense if you're a woman and I refer to you as a guy. Um, I just don't want anybody to be offended. Hey, there's the poet. Speak of the devil. No offense to poet. Because I was just talking about you. And there we go. Something was on my glasses there. I always notice these things when I'm on camera that, there's a blemish, there's a hair out of place, whatever. I don't know if anybody else does that, but oh, that's okay, the poet. Better late than never, right? I was a little late myself getting started because, like I said earlier, every time I go to do one of these, I something goes on around here. The dogs need to go out, and this, that, and the other happens, or I got to go to the restroom or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just every time it seems like. But Marvel, I was looking at your question here. You said, just out of curiosity, would you guys consider the Evil Dead franchise as a whole a comic franchise or just the Army of Darkness comics? Would be interested to hear your guys' thoughts as well. Well, for me, I never really thought of the Evil Dead franchise as a comic franchise. It did seem like, but I know with Evil Dead 2 that Sam Raimi pretty much had to add some slapstick or splat stick to Evil Dead 2, or the censors were going to be all over that. Being as the first Evil Dead was more independent and wasn't studio controlled, they got away with more. But then when they did Evil Dead 2, and then of course Army of Darkness, Universal did. So I think he just had to get more comedic as they went on. And I did not mind that as a fan of that original series. I didn't mind that they did that. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and all those guys were huge fans of the Three Stooges. And you see a lot of Three Stooges gags in mainly the second and third in the franchise. So I don't consider it a wholly comic franchise, but I do see where those elements were added, and a lot of times they were out of necessity. But I think that Sam Raimi also put his own spin on it by putting his love of Three Stooges gags into the films as well. And I think that kind of made it unique. And Marvel, you also said, any thoughts on Army of Darkness crossing over with properties like Freddy versus Jason, Marvel Zombies, and Xena Warrior Princess in the past? my thought on that, and everybody else can feel free to chime in if they want. My thoughts on that are that if it's done well, and it can be overdone, in my opinion, but if it's done well and done kind of sparsely, I don't think you need to do everything and have everything be a crossover, because I don't think that everything lends itself to a comic book atmosphere, if that makes any sense at all. So I don't think everything needs to have a crossover, but I'm interested in some of the crossovers, that have been, either pitched or, have actually made it to, a comic book form or a cinematic version of a comic book. Um, and I'm kind of interested in the Marvel zombies. I mean, that seems interesting to me. But again, I don't think everything needs to cross over. Everything doesn't need to be in the comic book universe. But like I said, that's just me. But anyway, Marvel might be thinking, well, I didn't want to know Dana's, but that's okay. And for those of you that may care, I have a new logo for Evil Dead Chicks Slasher Fest, as long as I remember to use it, and I'm using it tonight. Oh, that's a hot topic, isn't it, the poet? On the Warner Brothers buyout, Steve was telling me about that today. And but tonight we're going to be watching Offerings, here in a little bit. I've got to get mine queued up. In fact, I meant to do this earlier, folks, and I forgot. Things got busy around the house, and what in the world? I was going to try to see, because I don't know how many of you guys will be watching along, or just hanging out in here. Um, I don't understand how some of this stuff is related to what I put in here. It had stuff about Ozzy Osbourne, which is fine, but okay, here we go. All right. So I'm going to put, oops, not that. I'm going to put a YouTube link to the film Offerings in the chat, in case you guys are going to be watching along and you don't own your copy. This is my, who put this out? The Dark Force Entertainment put, yeah. Dark Force Entertainment put this out on Blu-ray a few years ago, and that's what I'm using. And we're going to be watching that in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get mine queued up, so that if y'all want to queue up your respective copies while I'm doing housekeeping stuff, you can. So give me just a second here. And I've, of course, got my popcorn tonight too. Things being extra slow tonight. Apologies, folks. And of course, we got to see the Dark Force even come out. All right. I'm going to get it past this, because Multicom Entertainment Group. Okay. So, For those of you that will be watching along with me on this movie, I am 24 seconds in on my Blu-ray, and it's to Christopher Reynolds Presents. And it looks like I've lost everybody but one person. So I better hurry up before I lose everybody. And I know this is not necessarily accurate sometimes on the StreamYard side, or the YouTube side, whatever it is. But if you want to, while I'm doing some housekeeping stuff, get your copy queued up, you can go ahead and do that. And I'm going to get with this housekeeping stuff. So, apologies that I did have to reschedule a couple of live streams for this past week. I had to reschedule both Insomnia Cure, and they're all messed up because I was feeling under the weather. But never fear, I should be doing those next week. So we also had the Black Christmas watch along from Black Christmas from 1974, the Bob Clark horror classic. In my opinion, that'll be starting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, if all goes well. I also have a Evil Dead Chicks Top 10 Zombie Films up. I have a Celluloid Trash for Uninvited and the Urge to Kill. There's Cinematic Leftovers, my After Thanksgiving stream. And there's also a Feast of Horror. The day before Thanksgiving, I put out a Deadites on Deck Thanksgiving special. And I also, in case you didn't notice, I put out a new commentary, a special Christmas edition of Commentary Chaos for Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's a watch along that me and Steve did, or a commentary rather, that Steve and I did a few years ago, and I put it up on the channel for you guys and gals. Okay. So, I guess that's all for the housekeeping stuff, except I want to remind you guys and gals that there are several different ways that you could support me in the channel, and it won't cost you a dime. One way is by subscribing. There's never a bad time to subscribe to either my channel or anybody else's channel. There are a lot of great channels out there if you're willing to go look for them. And once you subscribe to a channel, you can hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the new content that's coming out. Whether you subscribe to mine or you subscribe to one of the other many wonderful channels that are out there. And there are literally channels for every taste out there. And if you don't believe me, go doing searches. Just do searches for horror films or superhero films or whatever your interest is. And I'm sure you can find a channel that's devoted to that. In fact, probably several channels. You can also hit that like button on things that you especially enjoy. And heck, if you liked it all, hit that like button all across the board. And here's one more way that you can support me and the channel, and it won't cost you a dime. Won't cost anybody you tell about the channel a dime. That's by sharing my channel with friends and family members that you think might also enjoy the content I'm putting out. And once again, I will put the channel handle in the chat, and it's also the same as my chat name in here. So if it looks like it's duplicated, it is. So, all right. So I'm going to quit blabbing about all that stuff, and we're going to go ahead and get this movie started. So if you come in here later, you can get a timestamp from me. Just ask. But anyway, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Press play. And we are off and running with offerings from, I believe, 1989. 88, 89, I know. Oh, and also I wanted to say, I forgot to say this earlier. I have said it on some other previous streams that I am right now. I'm cutting the slasher fest down to just one movie instead of making it a double feature because it seems like people are not really wanting to stay around for the second film, or they're not wanting to stay about 3+ hours in here. And truth be told, folks, if nobody wants to be in here for the second movie, I don't want to be sitting here in front of my computer just talking to myself. So, unless there is a clamoring for me to go back to two movies and having a double feature, I won't be doing that on Slasher Fest or watch alongs or the slumber parties or any of that stuff. How long is the movie, to Poet? This movie is an hour and 33 minutes and like 58 seconds to be exact. So it's about average. And just don't mind me. I'm just eating my popcorn, drinking my zero sugar Mountain Dew here. Oh boy. You're watching this, you see a very scary woman on the screen. I don't think Steve's a huge fan of this movie, but he likes making fun of it. So and for those of you watching, you can see the woman just flicked ashes from her cigarette into her son's scrambled eggs. That's real nice. Steve thought this was his grandma when we watched it. It turns out there's no subtitles on this, but I've seen this movie so many times I know what the dialogue is. The poet, just to comment on what you said about the Warner Brothers buyout, and you said you're a wait and see kind of person. I'm kind of like that too. Um, when Steve was watching a video about it on YouTube earlier, I was like, this stuff is just going to get people wound up, and it might be stuff that might happen, might not happen. You know, I know they bought them out, but still, I would rather wait and see rather than get all wound up over something that might happen because of this buyout, or it might not happen. I need to put more of me and Steve's commentaries up on the channel, actually. So here come the popular kids, the preppies, or the preps, as I would have called them back in my school days. And they don't like little John Radley or Johnny. But Gretchen's nice to him. She's the only one that is nice to him. Oh, and we're going to see a scene coming up that is typical, especially of slasher films in this during this time period. That, of course, this was on the downward trend of slasher films in 88, 89, where something bad will happen and then years later, more bad stuff's going to happen because of what happens right here. So they're wanting little Johnny to walk the well. And apparently, this must be a rite of passage for the kids. So this one kid, Tim, scares Johnny, and then Johnny falls in the well. This kind of reminds me of a prom night like scenario for any of you that have seen the original prom night. Young Robin Hammond accidentally falls out a window, and they all, say, we'll go away, not tell anybody. So all the other kids run away, but Gretchen stays behind. Then we go to 10 years later. Hey, Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill, guys, was actually on offerings watch along that I did. Remember that, Uncle Bill? And that guy there playing the doctor, in case some of you are watching along, is the director of the film. That is Christopher Reynolds. Awesomely bad. Yeah, that's a good word choice, Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill, if you weren't busy, you could come on here for the Slasher Fest version of this. Oh, but I forgot. You might be doing something a little later for y'all's channel. So the doctor leaves the nurse alone with the adult John Radley, who's in a mental hospital. And this guy here, this little guy, Steve affectionately referred to him as Pepe. She's supposed to give John Radley another, I guess, that sedative. And she's nervous because, the doctor left her alone with this mental patient. Um, he was supposed to send an orderly in with her, and that orderly hasn't come yet. Why they don't have this guy strapped down, I do not know. And what happened to his face when he fell down the well, I don't know either. Uh-oh. So, of course, we won't be having the intermission time bumper because there's only going to be one movie tonight. But by all means, if people need to, you know, you can do whatever you want in the comfort of your own home. In fact, I'll do whatever I want in the comfort of my own home. I may have to take myself out of the stream to have a restroom break or get a refresher on my drink or whatever. People might say, well, gee, Dane, that goes without saying, but, now the orderly comes. And of course, John Radley just stuck a needle in the forehead of that nurse, and now he's going to escape. This movie is also very Halloween-esque, and you will notice that if you're watching along. This I don't understand. Maybe somebody in here can explain this to me. Why is he able to put his hands on an electrified fence and grip it, and then all of a sudden electricity goes away and he's able to climb over it? Everybody's eerily quiet now in the chat. I can hear crickets, y'all. This sheriff is a typical sheriff in these types of movies. Steve made fun of him unmercifully whenever we watched this and did a commentary over it. And this guy, Jim, he was evidently involved with the John Radley case of apparently, and we're going to find this out slowly, that um, John Radley somehow got out of that well when he was a kid and went back home and killed his mom and started eating her. And so the guy, Jim, he was involved with the case. I don't know if he's an ex cop or whatever. Now he's teaching college classes. Um, so he was involved with the original case. So um, he might be like a psychiatrist or ex psychiatrist or something, but he's like the Dr. Loomis character in Halloween. That is Loretta Lee Bowman playing Gretchen there. Some people are probably saying, who the hell is Loretta Lee Bowman? I don't know if she was in really anything else. I think Offerings is kind of one of these regional horror films too. I think I could be wrong now, so don't anybody jump on me. But I think it may have been one of those Oklahoma based ones. If you know different, feel free to, let me know. Just don't, get mad at me. And of course, we had the phone calls with her friend calling her and, her getting mad because somebody had called and didn't say anything. DePaul, you're right. Gretchen is an old name. And when Steve and I did the commentary, I think I said, what parents name their kid Gretchen? And Steve said something about a Russian descent or something. This is Halloween-esque as well. Jim shows up to talk to the sheriff. because evidently John Radley's been through here on his way back home. And we find out that some of these ducks have been eaten. And if you remember from the original Halloween, there's a scene where Dr. Loomis and Sheriff Brackett go into the old Myers house and there's a dead dog in there. And Dr. Loomis says he got hungry. And this is kind of a reverse scenario because Jim is the one that doesn't, I guess, doesn't want to believe that John Radley killed these ducks and halfway ate them. Um, so the sheriff's showing him, the duck pond is on a direct line from the mental hospital. And he says somebody could work up quite an appetite walking that far because Jim remarks at how many miles that was. And then they show you the ducks again. And now we're going to see the grown version of the jackass that scared little Johnny Bradley and made him fall into the well. So we know that this guy's got to die, right? Or we can suspect he's going to. And why Tim's mom has holiday on her dress, I don't know. There's the idiot that started all this. Why he swings his arms back and forth like that, I don't know. And so Casey, one of the friends, pulls up in her cool car and wants Tim's notes so she can copy them. I think geography notes. And of course, Tim has to grab his crotch and say, all these chicks want me for is my notes. Well, they can note this. I don't know who told him to swing his arms like that, but it looks ridiculous. And it appears the grown John Radley is in Tim's garage. And the leaves just fell out of that bag. That bag broke. And Tim is mad. Because now he's got to go back to the garage to find more trash bags. Uh-oh. So John knocked Tim out. And of course, what's the first thing Tim thinks? It's one of his friends that's done this to him. Yeah, I wouldn't consider those friends. If they hit you over the head and then tied you up, I don't think I'd want friends like that. And of course, he doesn't know who John Radley is at first, but he wants to know why he's spreading papers around. Because he don't want to make a mess, dude. I don't think he's going to be able to kick anybody's ass. His head's in a vice. He's tied up. And then he realizes this guy doesn't talk. Who else didn't talk? Little Johnny Radley didn't talk. So first, John Radley thinks he's going to be Leatherface. And he gets the chainsaw and he thinks he's going to cut Tim up. And I don't think that's going to quite work out for him. Uh-oh. Now he's got a drill. And the drill stops working. But we know this is a horror film. Tim's luck's going to run out here eventually. And he says a very stupid thing. I guess you're not going to kill me now, huh? Well, sorry about your bad luck, Tim. So, John Riley just uses the vise and he keeps tightening it up with a hammer until Tim's head bursts. And that's the end of Tim. That's what you get for scaring kids and making them fall in a well. So, Gretchen and her friend Casey are wondering where Tim is at. Well, Tim's in his garage at home with a crushed head. I hate to tell him, but that's the case. But guys, gals, I'm going to take myself out of the stream for just a second, okay? And then I will be right back. Y'all continue to watch if you're watching along. All right, gang, I'm back. So it took Steve a minute to figure out why this movie was called Offerings, but well, you know, I don't know that I picked it up. You can see the dog is grabbing a severed finger for the again for those of you that are watching along. We're gonna find out that John Radley is killing Gretchen's friends, but because Gretchen was the only one that was nice to him when they were kids, he's offering these body parts to her. But she didn't see the finger because her dog Bud just took off with it. And she just thinks, he killed a bird or something like that. Well, I never noticed that before. That poor dog's bowl is dirty as crap. Why don't she just rinse it out before she puts more dog food in it? And Casey is, of course, the annoying friend who, well, she's going to get hers because Gretchen had dog food on that spoon. And apparently Casey thought it was something yummy and put her mouth on it. Well, that's what you get. But like I was saying, Casey is the annoying friend who lays on the doorbell when she comes over. We all have that one annoying friend, don't we, that will do things like that. Now, although we don't see John Radley do anything to Bud, I don't think Bud ever shows up the rest of the film. So, Gretchen's putting food out for him and he doesn't come around. But as an animal lover, especially a dog lover, I would rather not see if Bud is supposed to be deceased. Now this chick, Linda, I don't know if she's supposed to be like Linda from Halloween, but I like PJ Souls better than I do this chick. PJ Souls and all her totalies is better than this girl with her ponytail on the side and all that business. And she's supposed to be the girlfriend of Tim, who we know is now in his garage with a crushed head. The way some of these people walk in this film, like Tim, he walked weird. Linda walks weird. I mean, maybe the director told them to walk that way. I don't know. And of course, this is like Halloween because John Rayleigh's in the back seat and he's going to twist Linda's head until her neck breaks. This is one of the lesser gory kills in the film. I mean, there are, what I'd like to know is if this is a real film here that Casey and Gretchen are watching. It looks like a bad film, but I would still, if it's a real film, I'd like to watch it. Even though Casey says it's boring. Now the boys have joined Casey and Gretchen, so we got a couple of extra people here. Because, of course, Gretchen's parents went out of town. They went to Hawaii and left Gretchen home alone. So, of course, she's going to not only have her friend over, but also her boyfriend, Greg, and Casey's boyfriend, David, is there as well. And the pizzas are late, so Gretchen has just called the pizza place to complain. And all Casey is concerned about is she forgot to ask about the extra cheese on one of them. And it seems the pizzas have arrived now, but the delivery boy or guy is not there to collect money, or girl. I don't want to be sexist or anything. They just left them on the porch, which is very odd, but Gretchen still brings them inside. And David's, well, you could get some big pizzas back in 88. Probably didn't cost that much either. And the pizza, even though it looks weird, they still are going to eat it. David said it doesn't taste like sausage, but it's good. I don't know many guys that would like a girlfriend that bites them, just out of the blue. But Casey just bit David. And Greg has to break up the little sex brawl, I think he calls it. And they're going to go varmint hunting in the morning. Look, they're going to go hunt ground squirrels. So they're going to go squirrel hunting. And I remember Steve saying when we did the commentary, he's like, that's something you leave girls over. I said, apparently in this movie. Okay, I have this question every time I watch this movie. How in the hell does John Radley, a grown, like, looks like a 6 foot something tall guy, slide in under Greg's bed from the side without him hanging out the other side? I don't know how that's possible. Movie magic, I guess. And Greg is really into his looks. He's got to look at himself in the mirror. And then he has a picture of Gretchen in a bathing suit. How he looks at her, me and Steve both laughed. And then he hears something, he looks around, and he's got Skeleton Crew. He's got Stephen King's Skeleton Crew on his shelf too. There, I noticed. And then he smiles at Gretchen's picture again. Stephen, I thought that was hilarious. And you know which kid he is, because the little Greg, when poor John Radley fell into the well, um, when he first got on the well to walk around it, he said, "He's dead meat." And of course, the adult Greg just said, dead meat, when he was thinking about going squirrel hunting tomorrow. And well, it looks like Greg's toast here. Because didn't somebody tell this guy never to look under his bed? So first he gets shot by his own gun. Then he gets dragged under the bed too. Again, I don't know how this is possible. That must be one humongous bed. And then we, of course, see some blood run out. Overall, this movie is not extremely gory, I would say. Greg apparently has very thin blood. And Casey remarks, why do people in these horror movies do such stupid things when they're going to do some stupid things later on? So Gretchen is concerned that if they break her mother's statue, that they're going to be in trouble. So she gives Casey a candlestick. Sorry, folks. That's another reason why I decided to do one film instead of two. I think me getting older means that I get sleepier early. And they found an ear. It's another offering. Of course, it's real, Gretchen. So here comes the sheriff. Like all the other sheriffs in these horror movies, they seem completely unconcerned that there's a severed ear. And he's like, how do you know it's real? He says they'll have to get it to the lab to find out. Yada, yada, yada. So he asked them if there was anything else strange, and they start talking about the pizza. And of course, Sheriff Chisholm um, wants the rest of the pizza so they can, run that to the lab. Of course, I made the joke when me and Steve did the commentary that, yeah, he wasn't going to run that to the lab. He was going to run it through his stomach. He was going to eat it. They keep referring that the guys came over last night, and I thought that this was the same night, but perhaps not. And he says, it doesn't look like sausage to me. And then he says, do y'all know John Radley? And of course, Gretchen says that, yeah, I remember him. We were kind of friends. And of course, Casey says, he was weird. And this is what parents do, or at least what parents did back in 1988, is they sit up late at night eating cake and watching cartoons and drinking coffee or whatever that is that they got. And of course, David is sick because he probably ate people parts on that pizza. That's why he's sick. But his dad so nicely puts it that he'd be better off if he didn't get so shit faced all the time. His mom says he shouldn't eat so much, and his dad says he shouldn't get so shit faced. And this, to me, even has a little Nightmare on Elm Street. Not that somebody's killing them in their dreams, but that somebody, David was almost back to sleep, and somebody is threw something at the window, which kind of reminds me of Amanda Wiss's character in Nightmare on Elm Street. And so he goes and sticks his head out the window and gets a rope around his neck for his trouble. And this is another example of me saying this movie is not extremely bloody, because we're going to see that the character of David is basically going to get hung. Guys and gals, in case you're wanting to keep count, we are almost an hour into this film, and we're seeing this kooky deputy. Now, I'm guessing the sheriff sent by to check on Gretchen's house. And Steve didn't notice this, but obviously the guy delivering the papers that only seems to Gretchen's house there is John Radley. Because I said, there's that guy. And Steve was like, what guy? I said, John Radley, the guy that's killing people. And this is the way he's going to give another offering to Gretchen. So here's another kind of nod or rip off, if you want to say that, to Halloween, and that Jim is going to the cemetery. And he's going to see this weird little guy who's training to be a mortician there, who's raising up the shovel and spearing it into the ground. We're going to find out that he's killing, I guess, earthworms, because he said they could mess up a real good job. But he's never going to be able to kill all the earthworms around. Steve said this guy reminded him of Andy Dick. He does kind of. And it turns out that the grave that this guy is trying to fix is Martha Radley's grave, which is John Radley's mother. Somebody has come in and broken the headstone and actually got down in the grave and slept in it. Yeah, he says he hates worms that can ruin a real good job. The poet, if there is a bloodier version of it, I haven't been able to find it. I'm not saying there's not. I'm just saying I haven't been able to locate it. And I've got two different copies of this. I've got the Dark Force Entertainment, and I've got the '88 Films release as well. And neither one of them seems to be any bloodier than the other. Which has not been the case with films like Happy Birthday to Me. Um, there is, of course, a much bloodier version than some people probably saw early on of Happy Birthday to Me. So we find out that Gretchen and Casey have slept all night in the same bed with a ball bat and a tennis racket. Don't you just love having a friend that when you say, I feel like shit, and they take a one look at you and say, you look like shit? We all need friends like that, right? As if we didn't feel bad enough. Okay, sorry, I keep yawning. I have to get up and get me some chocolate chip cookies or something. I think I will do that because my blood sugar's been kind of wonky lately. I'm not going to take myself out of the stream. I'm just going to merely step over here and get those. Well, Casey likes a lot of sugar in her cereal. Oh, now there's a nose in the newspaper. But there was a box of Rice Krispies. See, probably only I noticed this stuff. There was a box of Rice Krispies on the table, but they didn't look like freaking Rice Krispies that Casey was eating. It looked more like cornflakes or something. I mean, maybe she put a bunch of fruit in it. I don't know. So not John, Sheriff Chisholm is going to go over to the old Radley house, like the old Myers house, and he just seen somebody sneak in there, and I guess he thinks it might be good old John Radley to come back home, so he's going to investigate. And he's got his gun out too. I just have to wonder, how did young John Radley get out of that well anyway? How does one climb out of a well? I mean, I don't want to find out. Apparently, even after 10 years, there's still blood stains on the wall downstairs. And there's a kid looking at adult magazines. in, in the closet of the Radley house. And I believe this kid grew up to be like a producer or a cameraman, something. He he ended up working behind the scenes on stuff. Welcome back, Uncle Bill. So he tells this kid, you think you could quit playing with yourself and go out and find some real girls. Where are we at in the movie? We are an hour and 6 minutes in, where Sheriff Chisholm has just found the kid looking at dirty magazines in the closet of the Radley house or the attic or whatever that is. Exactly. Uncle Bill, quit playing with your bird. So this is odd too. This is supposed to be the same neighborhood, but it looks like it's dark as midnight where Gretchen and Casey are at. Meanwhile, it looks broad daylight where Sheriff Chisholm is at, making the kid put the dirty magazines in the trunk of his car. That's a good question to Poet. How come creepy old houses have a basement or, they have a creepy attic? I guess they wouldn't be creepy if they didn't. And the kid gives him the name Bend Over and then flips him off as he's running away when the sheriff realizes, that kid said, Bend over. Sometimes we like to think that kids were better back in the 80s, maybe. Ah, some of them were still little jerk heads. Of course, we see that it appears that John Radley was in the house lurking around somewhere. So the sheriff has come back because there's a nose in the newspaper. Wonder whose nose it was. Was it Greg's nose or David's nose? And why does Casey look like she's getting ready to go referee some sporting event? First, it was the late 80s. I guess go figure. And of course, the sheriff does the thing they always do. Girls, don't worry. This all just probably a big practical joke. When he knows for sure it's not. So Sheriff Chisholm is, talking to Jim again, and he shows him the nose, and he says that um, they think that the meat on the pizza was human, but they can't be for certain because it was cooked. Where John Radley found a place to cook it, I don't know. Because I doubt very seriously the stove would be working in the old Radley house. So I'm not sure if he built a fire and just like roasted it or what. I don't know. And of course, Jim says there seems to be a connection with what he's doing and what happened to him, and that he's offering these body parts to the girl. And of course, he says, "Did you tell the girls what's going on?" He said, "No, I told them it was a practical joke." And he's like, "Why did you tell them that? They need to know." And of course, the sheriff does the stupid thing and says, "I didn't want them to be any more nervous and worked up than they already are." And of course, Jim says, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess you're right." I think Scooby Dum would do a better job on the case of this than these two. So Jim's going to drive out to the well that little Johnny Radley fell into 10 years ago. And he's also got John Radley's medical history. Why we don't get to see a close up, I don't know. I guess they didn't think it was important that the audience saw that. I always thought that was funny too. He turns the flashlight on himself, and I made a joke about it when Steve and I did the commentary that um, I'm going to blind myself with this flashlight. Because he turned it on and then he shined it right in his eyes. It's like, what the heck? Why couldn't they have waited until the next day? I guess, that's horror movie logic. They got to go out there right now in the dark. So apparently, it smells really bad in that well. And apparently, that's where John has been disposing of the rest of the body or their parts. And there is John. And I don't know why this guy thinks he can reason with him. I'm really assuming that he's a psychiatrist of sorts or a retired psychiatrist because he's trying to talk to John. But why he gives him the freaking flashlight, I don't know. This is a seriously mentally ill person here. And why he says that, I don't know. You really did love your mother, didn't you? And here's a beating with the flashlight for your trouble, dude. And then he's going to put poor Jim in there, and he's got more body parts to put in there as well. Who knows? He may have cut up Jim too. So we got less than 20 minutes left of the film, like I said, in case some of you are keeping count. So we're getting down to the wire here, last quarter of the movie. Oh, there's this goofy deputy again. Deputy Buddy Logan. How a guy like this will get to be a cop, I don't know. That sort of reminds me of the scene in Black Christmas where they're laughing that these two goofy guys come that are with the search party. So now Sheriff Chisholm is out at the well, and he's unfortunately found Jim's shoe. I don't know that he knows it's Jim's shoe, but based on what happened earlier, we can only assume that's whose shoe it is. Sorry, guys and gals, if y'all see me closing my eyes every once in a while. But I've been having some sinus issues, and sometimes even the light from my computer desk and stuff causes my head to hurt a little bit. I'm trying not to, I don't want to go to sleep on anybody, so I'm not doing it too long. But in case anybody notices, stink on a skunk. That's what Buddy said. He says he's on them girls like stink on a skunk. That's a lovely turn of phrase. I think that 5-letter word for extinction is death. And speaking of death, John Radley has just showed up. So Casey's just going to bail out on her friend. What a great friend this is. She's just going to bail out on Gretchen. And so Gretchen gets her to stay, but Casey says if anything shows up in that house resembling an appendage, she's out of there. So Gretchen gets these funny feelings, and that makes everybody uneasy because when Gretchen gets these funny feelings, something always happens. So now the lights go out. So the phone is dead as well, or at least the phone downstairs. But the phone upstairs is ringing. I think the phone in Gretchen's room, and she tells Casey, "Why? I don't know." Again, horror movie logic, because they always split up at the wrong times, right? She tells Casey to stay downstairs, and her mom's calling from Hawaii. Gretchen says, "Shit, get off the phone," and then hangs up on her mother. Because, of course, she needs to call the cops. So Casey's stuck downstairs by herself in the dark. And we are now down to the final 10 minutes of the movie. Um, I do want to say, I think, Uncle Bill and the Poet, Gory Tiger, Marvel, I think all you guys and gals, if there were any, that came in here and watched this movie along with me or just, hung out. Again, y'all be sure to, if there's anything that you'd like to see me do a live stream on, or a particular movie that I haven't done a watch along, or a slasher fest, or um, slumber party for, and you want to suggest one, please, I'm open to any and all suggestions. And here's a real creepy ass look to John Radley here. This is probably the bloodiest thing in the movie because we find out that John has cut Casey's head off and he's got her head in his hand. But strangely, it does not look like Casey. It looks like maybe rock star Casey, if Casey had teased her hair out and stuff. And he's trying to offer Casey's head to Gretchen. Uh-oh. Well, Buddy's not going to be any help. He got stabbed with an ink pen or a pencil. I think it's an ink pen. And Gretchen's threatening to shoot John. And she's pretty much looks like she's shooting him full of a lot of holes. But as with all killers in these types of movies, John gets back up and she's out of bullets. I think it's funny though that she stops there before she starts running again. It's like, where am I going to go? Okay, I'll go this way. And she goes over to her neighbor, Mrs. Davis, over to her house. That's pretty bloody too. Apparently, John has slashed Mrs. Davis's throat, and he's coming in the front door, and Gretchen's going out the back door. Kind of pulled a Jason Voorhees there. It's like he teleported, and he went from being outside the house to, or inside the house to outside the house, and he grabbed Gretchen. And Sheriff Chisholm shows up just in time, da da da, to hopefully save the day. And Sheriff Chisholm has a big old gun. See if this thing will take John down here. And I always thought this, and maybe the negative is messed up, where this vibrates at the end. I always thought it was a problem with like the videotape I watched back in the day, but every version I've watched since has had this vibration as John is being shot with the either, I'm guessing it's a shotgun, the way it blowed his back out. Or maybe they did that on purpose for effect. I don't know. So he raises his head up one final time, and his dying words or word is love to Gretchen. So apparently he loved Gretchen. He wouldn't have hurt her because he didn't have anything against her. And then there's one tear that rolls out of his eye. And so we're about to tie up the film. We're getting ready to go to the end credit sequence, and I will stay with anybody that's still here until the credits roll. So if anybody has any questions about the film, or suggestions for other films I could do for Slasher Fest that I haven't done. And Bud the dog was Leroy, in case anybody cares. And even I forgot to mention this earlier. Even the music seems John Carpenter esque. Um, and the gaffer was Tim Boggs, which Tim Boggs did Blood Lake, which um, also leads me to believe this was an Oklahoma based film, because Blood Lake was filmed in Oklahoma. And I'm almost 100% sure that that is correct. And that Tim Boggs was good friends with Christopher Reynolds, the director of this film. And I do believe that Russell D. Allen did the music for both this film and Blood Lake. Yeah, music supervisor Russell D. Allen. Okay, and here's more Oklahoma stuff. Special thanks to the Oklahoma Film Commission, Oklahoma City Mayor's Office. So, guys and gals, if there's anybody left, we have officially reached the end of offerings. Again, I want to thank Uncle Bill and the Poet and Gory Tiger and Marvel for all being in the chat and keeping me company in the chat throughout this edition of Evil Dead Chick Slasher Fest. I had a good time, even though we didn't have an abundance of people, but that's okay. I had a few of you in here tonight to visit or revisit, as was the case with Uncle Bill, the movie offerings. Um, as I said, if you didn't watch it tonight, as I was going over, if maybe you want to revisit this Slasher Fest on my YouTube channel, you can. I hear one of my dogs coming in here. Bring. If you want to revisit it or watch it for the first time around, although I would suggest that if you've never seen it and you come across my Evil Dead Chick Slasher Fest for this, that you watch it first on your own and then go back and watch it with the Slasher Fest commentary for it. Just so you don't spoil the movie for yourself, because a lot of times I may spoil things during these watch alongs and these Slasher Fests and all that. And I wouldn't want to do that for anybody that has not seen the film. But I want to thank those of you too that maybe were in here that didn't, feel comfortable getting in the chat, but you were watching along. I want to thank those of you that did that as well. And for those of you that didn't have time to join me live tonight, that will watch this on the replay, I appreciate that as well. All these watches count, all the viewings count, folks. And they are, each and every one of you is important to me. As not only, a supporter of the channel, but as somebody that enjoys what I do. And that all makes it worthwhile, whether I have 2 people or 200 people. I've never had 200 people, but I'm just saying it doesn't really matter the amount of people. It just matters that at least somebody is watching, you know. So I'm going to call it a night because it doesn't look like anybody's asking any questions. Doesn't look like anybody's in here right at the moment. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the night. But as always, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And don't forget, tomorrow night is a watch along for Black Christmas, the 1974 Bob Clark Chiller Classic. Don't miss it, folks. This one's going to be a fun one. And it was voted unanimously in by you guys and gals, okay? So be sure to join me for that if you can, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. And y'all have a wonderful rest of your Friday night and have a fantastic weekend if I don't see some of you again, like tomorrow night or whatever. And if you love Ozzy as much as I do, get out there and blast some Ozzy. And try your best to live the Aussie way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, don't stay stuck in the past, folks. Move forward from the present into the future, but don't worry about the future. And don't ever, ever give up on your dreams, folks. And a special holiday message for everybody that I always like. I always want to remind you guys and gals of this, but sometimes I forget. But particularly around the holidays, if you've had some disagreements with friends or family members, now is the time to reach back out to those people and try to mend those fences. And if you have been the one not wanting to hear from a friend or family member, please try to be the bigger person and reach back out to the person that you were angry with and see if you can smooth those rough waters. Because, as my good friend Candace always tells me, we are never promised a tomorrow. And I would not want any of us to have any regrets. Okay. Um, it's never too late to say, hey, let's try to work this out. I know we had a disagreement and it seemed bad at the time, but let's try to work it out. Okay. Um, and I love each and every one of you guys and gals out there. And I'll see everybody next time.